All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. You're here with Tom and George. How you doing, George?
You mean a man that needs no introduction? How are you guys? Fun week, Tom.
Very fun week. Hope everybody's doing well. We did hit a new all-time high for Bitcoin in the last week. We're going to talk about what's going on with some altcoins. One specific coin that or more specifically, George has called out for years that's on fire. We've got some legislation that's passed. We've got some inflation data that came out. So we got a lot of stuff. As always, by Friday, there is too much, more than enough to talk about. It was a red day today for the Bitcoin miners, but I think you're going to see it was a pretty good week for the Bitcoin miners. It's been a really good month, and it's been a really good last 75 days. And I do think we've turned the corner, so we're going to show that. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to see what you guys think. Because I also do think, we've just had a really nice run. So let's see what's next. But let's talk about it, and let's get into it. So you can see I have the 15-minute up on the board, and we kind of hovered around. This gold line here is where Bitcoin was when the U.S. equity markets closed yesterday, and that is right here. So you can see we finished below at somewhere just after the market opened. Within an hour of the market opening, we had one really bad 15-minute candle, and then it just lingered all day long. So it was pretty much a sideways day for Bitcoin. We're trading inside of a range. 117,000 seems to be the bottom of that range. So I just think everybody should take a moment and reflect on the fact that, we're now kind of disappointed. We're at $117,000 for Bitcoin. It's mind-boggling. Right? We all would have, because we hit 100 in the middle. We did hit a new all-time high. We took out the old all-time high by more than 10%. We got up to $123,231. Right. So, yes, we've had a little pullback. You guys know how this works. This is how it goes. But I will say, even in that pullback, the Bitcoin miners have held very strong. Let's get to Midway. Midway, thank you for the very generous super chat. Much appreciated. And thank you for being a longtime member. I saw you started a new position in BitDeer this week. I also took profits on some IREN shares and used the money to buy more BitDeer in the 1280s. It's a big number 2 position for me. They're almost fully funded to 40 or 50 exahash already. So I have a whole segment I want to talk about on that. Thank you for bringing that up, Midway. And Midway was early on this. He's been talking about BitDeer for quite some time now. I just started talking about it. I just bought my first portion. So, but we're going to show you what their path is, and it's a very interesting company. The best thing about these Bitcoin mining companies, we're down to about 9 or 10 companies that we follow, but they're all, while they all mine Bitcoin, they all have very different business models, and BitDeer is no different. They might have the most unique out of all of them, so it's worth talking about. It's worth looking about. Not financial advice. Obviously, you guys do whatever you want to do, but thank you, Midway, and congratulations. I know you were first on that one. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for the super chat. Say it, Tom. We are off to the races. I want to hold back. I'm going to hold back for one more week. I think we're already off and running. We'll kind of give our opinion. I see some technical stuff that says we could consolidate for a short period of time. But yes, I do think we're off to the races. And that doesn't mean we won't go backwards 5 days in a row. But big picture, we have broken out, and I think the sky's the limit. And I think the Bitcoin miners and the altcoins, you get into this trap where you feel like, I missed it. But did you really miss it? You missed the beginning of it. And I understand these things work in multiples. So if something's doubled, had you got in at the perfect bottom, yes, you would have had twice as much of it. But if it's still going to quadruple from here, is it too late? My answer would be no. What do you think, George?
I think I did a quick poll, guys. Just be honest. I mean, I just want to see who's in the green, who's not in the green. 5%, 10%, doesn't matter what it is. Just curious, really. Because we might have to change a few things, and based on this answer of this, I think you guys will understand why.
This is a great poll.
Listen, and we're not smart enough to have people like in the audience like, oh, I'm going to answer this. Be honest. If you haven't made money, great. I mean, it's sad, but if you have made money too, and if you haven't, tell me why, please, because we want to work on that, because our goal is that everybody makes money. That's our goal.
That's right. And it's a learning process. It's a long journey. A lot of the members have taken that journey with us, and we do a members only Tuesday live stream where we talk a lot more in detail about some specific stuff and some stuff they don't really let you talk about on, just the general chat that's open to the public. Which reminds me, if you guys could do us a favor and smash the like button or the thumbs up button, it does make a huge difference for the stream in real time. We're at 34 likes. We're going for 100, minimum 100 likes. We missed that twice, so that got to show just how discouraged everybody was with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, the cryptocurrency universe. But I think we're on the rebound. So do us a favor. Let's hit the like button. Let's get this stream out into the world.
Andrew said this was an interesting one. Andrew said he tripled his portfolio in 3 months, and he's not in crypto.
Wow.
He's in the TQQ, NVDA, and Unity.
So triple Qs, we had a V-shaped recovery. And so if you were in the triple Qs, if you were in the triple SPY, and the Qs did better than anything. So that was a great spot to be in. Obviously, NVIDIA recently became the first company in the history of the known universe to be worth $4 trillion in market cap. They're at about $4.2 trillion right now. And what is happening with these, I have an article. What's happening, even the S&P 500 is getting so top heavy that, the top 10 stocks represent almost half the whole thing. So, you buy something like the SPY so that you can be diverse, but 40% of your money's in just the top 10 companies. So I have an article that talks about that. I basically just summed it up right there. But, we didn't used to have $1 trillion companies. Now we have $2 trillion, $3 trillion, and now all of a sudden $4 trillion companies. It's getting out of control. And I have somebody else here that we'll talk about that predicted this AI bubble is worse than the tech bubble. I want to show you that article later, and I want to show you why I think they are ridiculously wrong. Not that there's not a bubble going on, because I definitely think there is, but once we get to it and talk about it, it's going to be obvious why this person has no perspective, and maybe they're young enough and they weren't there and they don't remember it, or they just wanted a sensational headline. But I do think there's a bubble. Maybe that can be our next poll. Yeah,
I do too. Liz Thomas sold IREN 300% plus, bought BTPT.
That's a great move. That's a great,
yep.
And obviously everybody's got to have their own exit strategy. But IREN, I'm going to go to the chart right now, because that's one. This is what illustrates why we're in the Bitcoin miners, right? And we struggled and we suffered and it was brutal. And right, a lot of us were happy. Most quit. So congratulations to anybody who's still here and who's in the green, because we had to wait a long time. But here's what happens when things hit. This was the day we did call the bottom on this channel, which this is the only time I've ever done in my life, because there's only been 2 or 3 times in history where there was such an obvious bottom, you could call it. Most of the time, you just roll in the dice. So since April 8th, that's less than 3 months ago, IREN is up 250%. 250%. So when we talk about these things, 2xing, 3xing, 4xing, 5xing, that's not some pipe dream that has no precedent that we just hope is somehow going to happen. Now, there's no guarantee that's going to happen, that's for sure. But we've seen it happen time after time after time with the Bitcoin miners. And here's a Bitcoin miner that's up 250% in less than 3 months. I mean, is it time to get out? If you bought on the 8th, which I told everybody in our members section that I did, right? I mean, that's how good of a run is that?
Isn't that 90 days, Tom?
Yeah, it's like 90 days, not even.
90 days. Yeah. A little bit over 90.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's a little bit over 90 days now.
You keep saying that. I'm like, no, it ain't.
I lose track of time. It's actually a little bit over 3 months, not a little bit under 3 months. But still, I mean, that's the kind of, and it's not like I'm going to go to another one, because it's not like, wow, you know, this one is an outlier. They did better than anybody, but you know, let's go to CleanSpark. If you take the same period of time, they're up 95%. 95%, right? And they were up as much as 108%. So they've pulled back a little bit, but that's almost a double. I'm just going down the list right in a row. Here's Riot. Riot's up 121%. Riot's up 121%. And I don't remember the last time in the comments section of one of our live streams, even one person said a good thing about Riot, and it's up 121%. Marathon, and then we'll move on. Marathon's up 97%. And the thing is, with that, it still needs to go up another 55% just to get back to where it was in November of 2024. Not to its peak of the last cycle, which was $83, just to get back to where it was when Bitcoin was at $50,000. So that's why, you know, it's my opinion that there's a lot of room left to the upside. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for the super chat, and thank you for being a member. Tom and George are a rare find in a world full of hate and greed, unmatched consistency, knowledge, and support for the community they have built. Well, thank you very much, Sour Melon Gaming.
Thank you, sir.
That's very kind of you. It's much appreciated. And I know Sour Melon Gaming is one of several people that have been here since pretty close to the beginning. So thank you. All of you know who you are. Thanks for taking the journey with us. It's been a wild one. You know, George started out by saying this was an interesting week. It's been an interesting week, month, year, 4 years. So we've been doing this for over, 4.5 years now. So.
And I can tell you guys, I'm down in my Bitcoin mining stocks. I have not gotten back to where I was. I've just been letting it sit there and go up and down, go up and down. But because of crypto, that balanced everything out. And, you know, so if you had the crypto in there, forget it. It's just crazy. I've never 10x'd anything before in my life. And this was, you know, an XRP was that 10x. And, you know, I'm not even nervous. I didn't take any out, and whatever happens, happens. I'm running. I'm going with it.
And that's a lesson in George didn't just throw darts at a board and pick XRP. He did his due diligence big time. He got up close and personal with XRP years ago.
All right.
He had a high level of conviction, so no matter what happened, he stuck with it, and it's been a 10x for him. I mean, 10x is generational type money, and that's what we're trying to do here. And, you know, also one of the things, these are some common strategies we try to talk about. And again, everybody's going to invest how they invest. It's not financial advice. but by buying some of the cryptocurrency directly, that was diversifying the portfolio, and that paid off monumentally because the Bitcoin itself has outpaced all the Bitcoin miners. Now, not in the last 90 days, it hasn't. It's been a total reversal of that. But in the 2 years before that, diversification, due diligence, these are all the things we continuously preach.
You guys, and I know everybody on the stream knows this, I got hate for XRP. I didn't get just a little bit. I mean, I got freaking death threats.
Laughed at, ridiculed.
Yeah, I mean, just like, you're an idiot. And I'm going to go through. That's what I want to do. We should do a stream like that, Tom. And just go through and start reading all the hate.
I can't. There have been many people in the comments section that said, I'm unsubscribing and never watching you again because you guys are idiots. And okay, yeah. I mean, go ahead. Fair. And, I'm not hoping you do that, but if that's how you feel.
No, if they feel that way, God bless them, move on. I'm okay. Listen, I'm okay if somebody makes a decision and calls me an idiot, maybe to you, I am an idiot. I'm okay with that because you're an idiot. You see what I mean? You can't fix stupid. You just can't, and remember, and I'll still say it today without getting any specifics on anything. I still think the EV money is going to rotate in to the Bitcoin miner stocks.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of rotation left ahead. And Midway, I want to just say thanks for the super chat. And Midway said, congrats on XRP. I will tell you, it took me a long time to get into the game. So I've caught a 50% run up on XRP, but that's nothing compared to what George has caught on XRP. But it's...
So I have to say, so here's what I'm going to say. We are not going to talk about exit strategies on any cryptos, any Bitcoin miners, any stocks or anything. That's all going to be talked about on our members only chat. We have information. We really look at the information of the people who watch our channel. And guys, the people watching our channel has the highest net worth. We can honestly say on our channel, it is the highest net worth show on YouTube. That's crazy.
We're not a huge channel, but we're
not a huge
very
channel,
dedicated.
But we're a rich channel.
Yeah, and very dedicated people that have taken this journey with us. And a lot of people came into it with a lot of money. A lot of people have made a lot of money. Unfortunately, some people are probably still down a little bit, all things depending. Did we end that last poll, or is it still out there?
Yeah, I did. It was 75-25.
Okay,
roughly.
So 3/4 are up. Yeah. That's great to hear.
And Sour Melling said it great. He goes, probably every single person in the green is a member. And if you're not a member, it's only $5. I think, to me, it's, instead, if you say you don't have the $5, God bless, see you later. I'm sorry, but, that would be for a different stream, how to get $5. That's not what this stream's about. This stream is about making sound financial decisions for the rest of our lives and hopefully change the lineage of your, people.
Yeah, we're going for, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you're going for generational wealth building here. That's the long-term goal. And some days are going to be better than others. So we never look at anything on a 1 day or a 1 week time frame. And sometimes we've had to wait months and we had a 7-month period in a year last year where Bitcoin was up 120%. We had 7-month streak of Bitcoin going down. So you know how many people, how many retail investors bailed and the institutions poured in and made a fortune. So that's what they're doing to us. And we're kind of trying to just be the voice on the other side of that, saying, don't let them do it. Don't let them scare you into buying high and selling low. Oftentimes you may think you bought low and it goes lower. Well, in retrospect, if you sell, what you did is you bought high and you sold low. And that doesn't mean never buy anything or never sell anything, right? You guys got to make your own entrance and exit strategies, but don't do it just because you don't. Don't do it because you bought it because you didn't know what it was, and now it's not doing well, and you still don't know what it is, so you're afraid of it, and you run away from it, right? That's why you got to do due diligence. You got to know, you got to know your own stocks, or you will forever be chasing your tail, which most retail investors lose money. They would be better off just putting it into the Qs or the SPY because, over the course of history, we're at all-time highs right now at the market. So over the course of history, those have performed very well. Now, if you have a little bit of time and you want to do some of your own investing, then there is time enough to do due diligence, right? You don't have to read every 10K cover to cover to do due diligence. Just know your company, know your stock, know what they're doing, keep up to date on what's changing with them. It's not that hard.
Just did another quick poll, and that's: are we at the highs for crypto and stock market? Just want to see what people think. Hey, Tom?
Yes.
I mean, some unbelievable news today just happened, right?
Yes.
Whoever thought that the freaking bill would get passed so quickly on this whole crypto thing with Trump?
So
it's insane. They passed it, I think, last night, right?
Yeah.
And he's signing it today. It's insane.
This has been a long time coming. I thought today would be a better day as a result of this. The Genius Bill went through the Senate. It went through the House. It got to the president's desk. He signed the bill. It is now law. We now have stablecoin law. And several of the largest financial institutions of the world have already jumped into the deep end of stablecoins. I think I have some articles on that open, and remember, that is the gateway to cryptocurrency. That was the choke point, if you guys remember. There was choke point, and it's this act basically eliminates that. We're moving towards a world where traditional financial institutions are going to be waist deep in cryptocurrency. And obviously the stable coins are the ones that they're the bridge from fiat to crypto. And then where you go from there is your own choice. And the adoption that's going on, the growth in the size of the stable coin it's been out of this world, and it's about to skyrocket. There's multiple different $1 trillion plus companies talking about making their own stable coins. There's group of companies, there's countries. I mean, we're at the starting gate, I guess is what I would say. And like George said, today the president put pen to paper for the first time ever. We now have some guidance, and the House passed a much more comprehensive bill here in the United States that they sent to the Senate as well this week. So we'll see, how that goes. But all of this is coming. We've known it. It's happening. We're checking boxes. Every week we check a box. Another game-changing thing happened. So I'll go through some of those. Let me find.
Might have to read some tweets that are coming out right now too, Tom.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What's happening?
There are actually bombs being thrown right now in the whole Iran-Iraq thing, and I think that's the reason why Bitcoin did not take off to this afternoon, at least.
You think that was the stall today? Because I thought we'd finish, it's not unheard of for people to take profits on Friday and come back on Monday. But I did think we'd have a good day. And here's the article. Bitcoin tops 120K on report of Trump approving crypto investments for, I grabbed the wrong article. This is another thing. So let's talk about it as long as I accidentally went here. This is even bigger than the other one. And nobody's even talking about this. Bitcoin tops 120K on report of Trump approving crypto investments for retirement accounts. And let me be more clear about that, and we'll go through the article. The president could sign an executive order as soon as this week to clear regulatory hurdles to allow investing in alternative assets, including cryptocurrency, in 401k accounts. Now, this is not just cryptocurrency. It's, let me see, they do a little better job of summarizing this. Okay, the order, which could be signed as soon as this week, would allow 401k accounts to invest in a broader set of assets beyond traditional stocks and bonds, such as digital assets, gold, private equity. So, and there's more. So this is legislation trying to let 401ks do what, hedge funds do and what gigantic investment groups do, because they're locked out of all these things. But what's the first thing they're going to jump into, right? Because it's going to be digital assets. Because even gold, through the ETFs, they've had access to gold. Now, recently, we have Bitcoin ETFs. We have Ethereum ETFs, which we're going to talk about because both of those are on fire and setting records. But this is another. So we like on this channel, we talk about, there's pools of trillions of dollars. There's 10 trillion here. There's 40 trillion there. There's 11 trillion there. Well, there's no bigger pool than these 401k accounts. And they're all about to get access to cryptocurrency. So the demand continues to go up. Obviously, the more people you allow to buy these products and the more mainstream it gets, the more the demand is going to get. And the supply is minuscule. The on-chain supply of Bitcoin is tiny. Right, so 74%, I think they said, of the supply of Bitcoin is not available for trade in wallets for multiple years. So, you've only got a couple of million Bitcoin that are tradable, and you've got people coming in buying them in droves. You've got companies coming in, you've got ETFs coming in, you've got government entities at the federal level, the state level, the local level. You've got businesses on their balance sheet. You've got business 401ks now are going to be allowed to jump into the mix. It's like I said, this has only just begun.
I know 4 people that have over 400 Bitcoin apiece.
Wow.
And you would never know, and they don't live any differently than they would live. Like, they could be your neighbors. That's how much they don't really, of course, they care, but, they don't talk about it. I know them through crypto. So, you kind of know them through the space. And it's just interesting. One got it from mining it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk about another pool of $10 trillion. Anti-Bitcoin Vanguard might be the largest institutional holder of MicroStrategy. Well, guess what? It's not might be. They are the largest institutional holder of formerly MicroStrategy, now called Strategy. So that is a direct play on Bitcoin. But what's their Bitcoin policy? I went and pulled it up because it's mind-boggling. This is off of their corporate website. Q&A. No Bitcoin ETFs at Vanguard? ? Here's why. The recent introduction of spot Bitcoin, and this was written in January of 2024, a year and a half ago, and they haven't changed their position at all. The recent introduction of spot Bitcoin ETFs has been generating headlines and buzz in pockets of the industry. However, Vanguard does not have plans to create a Vanguard Bitcoin ETF or other crypto-related products. Additionally, such products from other issuers will not be offered to our brokerage platform. So not only aren't they doing their own ETF, if you're one of the $10 trillion at Vanguard, they don't even let you buy a Bitcoin ETF. So there is an inevitable reckoning here with this $10 trillion, because I could just tell you what you guys already know. Ultra high net worth people do not like being told what they can and cannot do. And at this point, the adoption level for Bitcoin, Vanguard is now some statistical outlier that they won't let their people buy. This is more on principle and hate than it is on, responsibility, because this is a ridiculous policy and it will be overturned. And if they don't overturn it, they will lose a lot of money under management, because people aren't going to tolerate this. And like I said, we're still very near the beginning of this. Their counterparts, BlackRock, right, the BlackRock ETF is the most successful ETF in the history of the world. And there's tens of thousands of ETFs. Now, how do I define that? BlackRock's ETF just went by $80 billion of assets under management. They did that in 374 trading days. So that was the all-time record. Anybody guess what the previous record was? I'll give a couple minutes.
I got to sneak out for a second.
So I'll tell you, the previous record for any ETF ever created to get to $80 billion of assets under management was 1,817 days. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF did it in 374 days. By the way, Fidelity's ETF is going to break that previous record. ARK Investments ETF is probably going to break. We're probably going to have 4 Bitcoin ETFs that will be the 4 fastest ETFs to $80 billion under management in history. Better than every single ETF that's ever existed. So to try to say that this isn't happening, it's happening. We're watching it. It's here. And Larry saying Vanguard will eventually buy, and Gorilla saying Vanguard is a boomer company. They're done. But they may be a boomer company, but the boomers have a lot of money right now, and $10 trillion of it is with Vanguard. So something will break very much sooner than later, in my opinion. And Midway is saying Fidelity got on board with Bitcoin even before BlackRock did. I think younger people who choose Fidelity will choose Fidelity over Vanguard. Right, so I like Fidelity, and they have their own. They have the second largest Bitcoin ETF. And I'm going to go to the numbers right now because they're staggering. So this is what the Bitcoin ETFs have done lately. Look at this run. Yesterday, $522 million of inflow. The day before, $799 million. The day before, $403 million, $297 million. July 11th, over $1 billion of inflow. By the way, July 10th was even more. $1,175 million of inflow. This stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 days? That's the best stretch in the history of the Bitcoin ETFs. So you'll see they have $54 billion of inflow. That's net of the $23 billion that people bailed out of Grayscale because their fee was astronomical. But the worth, their assets under management, is significantly higher than that. Because remember, a lot of people got into these when Bitcoin was at $50,000. So, for instance, BlackRock's inflow is $56 billion, but they're worth well over $80 billion of assets under management. So this has been a phenomenal run. There's only one red day on the list. And then I'm just going to switch gears to Ethereum for a second because, and I will tell you, I've been an Ethereum doubter. I own no Ethereum. I could kick myself, but that's just how it works. You can only pick so many things. Here's what Ethereum has done lately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days. 211 million, 383 million, 204, 259, 192. The last 2 days, $726 million of inflow, $602 million of inflow. These are the two biggest days the Ethereum ETFs have ever had in their history. It's picking up momentum. And by the way, Ethereum's on fire. So we talked about that. And, again, I didn't buy Ethereum. It bounced off of like $1,400. It's at like $3,400 right now. So as are a lot of the altcoins, which is going to bring us to a later conversation as to how far into altcoin season are we, if it has started at all, because that's definitely a fair question at this point. So is Bitcoin still a good buy at 117-ish? Vote on that one if you haven't. Most people think still a good buy. Do us a favor if you can, if you would be so kind as to hit the thumbs up or smash the like button. It helps the stream out in real time. Jeff D'Agostino, thank you for the super chat. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. It's forever. A buy against all assets. Right. And I've got a lot of discussion now about the changing opinion of what Bitcoin is. There used to be a group of Bitcoin maximalists and cryptocurrency people that were in the know and ahead of the curve, and they had a certain set of beliefs about Bitcoin. Well, now all of a sudden the rest of the world started to look at that and go, wait a second, maybe that's right. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe having everything in fiat is not a sound strategy, right? Still, every single one of the S&P 500 companies, with the exception of Tesla and now MicroStrategy, has $0 invested in Bitcoin out of the trillions of dollars on their balance sheet. They have zero, none, not one mainstream company has adopted Bitcoin yet. And that's coming. That 5 years from now, we're going to live in a world where it's a crazy exception. It's going to be the vanguards of the world that are just holding out on general principle out of pride or whatever the case may be. All right.
So you want to read those real quick, and then I got a couple things.
You got it. So Sour Melon Gaming, thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a member. Time to revise that 175K target, Tom. We'll talk about that later. That's the target I've stated, 175K, and everybody's feeling pretty good right now, and I'm one of those people. Paintball for life. Bitcoin formed a topping tail at 123K. Is the top in? So we're letting you guys decide. Did you just end the poll? So is Bitcoin still a buy?
I got another question.
We did?
Yeah. This will paintball for life. This will answer your question with the poll I'm going to do.
Oh, you got another poll coming up?
Yep.
Very good. Right. Only time will tell. But I continue to form the argument that everything that's happening is bullish. And not only is everything bullish, but people have stopped, not people like you and I and the retail investors, institutions at every level have started to accept the fact that, guess what? This is here. This is real. And if we don't get in, if we don't get ahead of the curve, we're going to be behind the curve. Whether it's a business that thinks that, whether it's a financial institution that thinks that, whether it's a country that thinks that, That's what's happening right now. And Jeff is saying, sorry, Bitcoin and supermarkets are forever buys. What? Jeff's done very well on the supermarkets.
Well, and so Tom, what I was going to say was, now I forgot I'm old. You can't keep cutting me off. People.
Oh, no.
What I was going to say was, Saylor was saying that he believes Bitcoin will go up 29% every year until 2035.
So a much extended cycle. And he's the one, I think I still saved this. He said it's going to effectively, if you average it out in the next 21 years, it's going to get to $21 million.
Right.
So, you know, that's an extreme viewpoint, but it doesn't stand alone in a vacuum. There's a lot of people that have, you know, that might be one of the highest ones, if not the highest, but 3 million, 5 million, 7 million, you're hearing that more and more and more. And that's not, you know, in this bull market. That's, you know, there's multiple halvings between now and 20 or 25 years from now. But that is, you know, if that happens, that's going to be the best performing asset, and it's not going to be close. So to allocate 0% of your money into that, I understand companies saying, well, it's despite the fact it's maturing, it's still young. So, you know, I want to limit my access, but you eliminate it. That doesn't make sense. There's no reason.
And remember, the CEO of Vanguard is the guy who was running the hedge fund or the ETF for BlackRock.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense when you understand. You know what I mean? When you understand, it makes complete sense. You know, they don't want this to happen. They don't want BTC to have a God candle this year. And what do I mean by a God candle? I would say 50%. You know, a 50% run to maybe even 100%.
In a day or a week, some type of time frame like that?
I would say in a month. I'd rather say in a month.
In a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we pulled a double in a month, that would be the biggest candle we've ever had by a wide margin.
But what I think people think a God candle is going to be is that in 24 hours it's going to double. I don't think that's going to happen, personally. But I think it could do it over a month. You know, and I think this is what people don't understand about this whole halving cycle. And everybody goes, "Oh, every halving cycle. Oh, you always say that." Well, we've never had the type of legislation that we currently have today, as I speak, in the crypto world, and that's huge, guys. What happened today could be one of the biggest pieces of legislation that's ever happened in the financial world of crypto. And no one's even really acting like it is. And it is. It is amazing what has happened today.
It's a big deal. And for those of you who don't know, you know, we went through the cycle. The Senate passed the Genius Bill, which is a stablecoin act. They sent it over to the Congress. The Congress passed it last night, put it on the president's desk, and he signed it today. It is now a law. And I think George is right. People are dramatically underestimating. That is the biggest piece. That's the biggest piece of legislation. They're going to do a lot more legislation, and I'm okay. You know, we don't want the Wild West. We don't. So I understand. I don't want overregulation by any means, obviously, but we're going to get some regulation. But this piece right here just opened the door to every bank in the world getting into cryptocurrency. Every financial, the trillions and trillions and hundreds of trillions of dollars, this just unlocked the door and said, go on in.
And I'm going to give you a little piece of like something I did this past week. Okay. And I had to move money from the United States to Slovenia, if you know that country. It's a little tiny country. Have some friends over there. And I just had $300. Okay. Would you guys like to know how much money it cost me to move $300 to this small country? I use PayPal. There are a couple of, I've used like 3 or 4 other companies.
So
which all those companies go out of business because of crypto, by the way.
did you use the standard financial institutions with fiat currency, or
Yes,
did you use cryptocurrency?
No, I didn't. No, I did it both ways.
Did it both ways?
One with XRP, and I did one the normal, way, the fiat, like you go to the bank, you transfer the money, yada yada yada.
Just the time.
Oh my goodness. So once you understand crypto, and I think I got to do 101 classes for crypto, $30 Pogo wins, $30. That's how much it costs. And it was just like, why? Why? There's two things that people don't understand. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. And I know you yell at me, Tom, but Visa and MasterCard and American Express, their days are numbered because they've been making money off of the back of middle class for years. And they've made a multi-billion-dollar network off of it. Okay, guys? That's all gone with crypto. They're trying to do everything they can. They know it. I know it. And now you guys know it. Crypto changes that way that we can get paid. So I do construction, right? So let's say my bill is $5,000. I use XRP. $5,000 transfers from Mr. Smith to me. Guess how much it costs for that $5,000 in XRP?
Pennies.
It's not even $1.
Right.
Okay, guys.
And it happens instantaneously. You know what makes me crazy? Sending a wire transfer.
Yes.
And then waiting. Did you get it? No. I sent it 4 hours ago. Did you get it? No. No. It's a wire transfer. It's traveling at the speed of light. You didn't get it yet? Who's got my money in the middle?
But I'm telling you, credit cards, they got a serious problem going forward. A serious problem.
I happen to agree. Visa and MasterCard are two of the 20 largest companies in the world. They're each separate companies, and they're just around $500 billion market cap each. And, I'm not saying this year or next year, but if you look 5 years, take a snapshot of what the world looks like 5 years from now and then 10 years from now. Is there a place for those companies? And they are scrambling to make every relationship they can inside of the crypto universe to try to keep charging people even when they use crypto. But I feel I'm with George. I think they're going to lose that race. The world's changing.
Yeah, it's changing fast. And I think that what we still forget, we didn't even talk about that. Crypto, and this is why I love Bitcoin, and I like I don't like all crypto, but I like a lot of the crypto, is that this is financial freedom. We are going, if you guys, I don't know anybody's situation or anything like that, but if you play your cards right, you can make decent money, not financial advice. This is what I'm doing. I've invested more than 80% of my what do you want to call it, wealth into crypto. I guess when it's pennies, guys, it's not really wealth.
It's all a matter of how much conviction you have, how much you understand what you're investing in, and how much you're willing to stand by it. I think a lot of us here, like George, have what most people would consider an unreasonable concentration of risk. I know I do, but my conviction has not wavered at all. So I will be riding this out. And that doesn't mean I'm going to hold every stock forever. Like George said, on the members only, we get into more details about stuff like that. But
look at Sour Melon. Oh, my goodness.
Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for being a member. Thanks for the super chat. A 100,000 share position at 61 cent cost basis. I sold for $4.97 a share. 100% from Tom's guidance. Does $5 a month seem expensive now? Become a member. Thank you, Sour Melon Gaming. And congratulations, Sour Melon Gaming. That's what we're talking about. That's generational change. From 60 cents to $5. And that was not in a long period of time. So I know we've had other success stories, and Sour Melon, thank you for sharing that success story. And I think that was in TeraWolf. Unless you've done this in more than one thing, which is also possible. Yeah, you go on to say my wolf position. So yeah, I mean those kind of moves are what has happened. I'm going to go to let me go somewhere here. Because one of the things that's happening, a lot of people are complaining, you know what, these Bitcoin miners are still nowhere near where they were at the peak of the last cycle. And that is a fact. However, I want to show you a chart. I look at this a little differently. This chart right here, this shows you where the Bitcoin miners are from their low in this last crypto winter. So that was a double bottom in November and December of 2022. So it's 2023, 2024, and half of 20. We're 2.5 years later. If you own IREN, you're up 1,659%. If you own CIFR, you're up 1,568%. If you just held Bitcoin, the underlying asset, you're up 660%. TeraWolf, 859%. Now, when I look at this chart, you know, I'm fortunate. I own some of these that are way up here. I own IREN. I own CleanSpark. I own Marathon. Unfortunately, I own Bitfarms. Was at one point my biggest position. Now it's my 5th biggest position, just because everything else has performed so much better than Bitfarms. But even Bitfarms is up 175%. Hive is still right now only up 64% off of its lows from the bottom of the crypto winter when Bitcoin was at $15,000 and Hive was at 3 exahash. Hive's on track to get to 25 exahash. They're at 12 exahash right now, and Bitcoin's at $115,000. So to me, this is the last stock that I started buying, and I have been dollar cost averaging into this and into BitDR. So BitDR's up almost 400% off the bottom, but I find their story compelling. But these are the kind of charts I look at, right? And when people say, this is a 16x, right? So when somebody says, oh, you know, this thing might 5x. Well, guess what? IREN already 16x'd. And it's probably not done. So this is what we try to keep our eye on. And yes, from the highs, other than IREN, none of these stocks are back to their previous highs. In fact, most of them have to double, triple, quadruple to get back to their previous highs from the previous cycle. But guess what? Maybe they will. So we don't know. CleanSpark's up 634%. They have not, you know, one of the things is all these companies ever do is dilute. It's worth noting CleanSpark has made a point to let us know it's now been 9 months since they issued a share of stock to raise capital for dilution. So they're done with that. That doesn't mean forever, right? But, you know, if they go a couple of years without doing that, and that's what I'd like to see, a little bit of a pause, because a couple of things happen. They've already ramped up. Companies like CleanSpark and IREN have already ramped up to 50 exahash. Marathon's at 57 exahash. So they've already gotten where they need to go. Let it ride through the bull market. Let the technology of the ASIC chips continue to improve, as we know that it has drastically, because that's the other thing. These fleets, efficiency, joules per terahash, is down dramatically, cut in half or more sometimes. So let the technology improve. And then, you know, a year and a half from now, when you're getting ready for the next halving, go buy the machines that are 7 joules per terahash versus like the latest and greatest are 15 joules per terahash. The whole network was at like 50 joules per terahash a year ago. The miners, the publicly traded miners, were more like 30 joules per terahash. Most of them are now more like, their fleet is about 20 joules per terahash. So that's a significant increase right there, and it's only going to get better from there. So my point is, a lot of good things are happening with a lot of these companies, and they're nowhere near their all-time highs. But let's not pretend there was an opportunity to make money. I mean, if you held a 15 or 16x here, you made a lot of money. Or if you were more conservative like George and said, you know what, I'm just going to hold the Bitcoin. You're up 660%. What else is up 660%? I know there's some things, NVIDIA, etc. But I mean, this is elite. This is rare air. So the last couple of years, the performance of these companies has been exceptional, though it doesn't feel like it. It feels horrible and painful. So let's look at what happened this week. Okay, so this is what the Bitcoin miners did this week. Now, there's one anomaly on here. Core Scientific's down 31%. Core Scientific, there had been rumors for about a month that CoreWeave was going to put an offer in to purchase them. Well, this week, CoreWeave did put an offer in to purchase Core Scientific. And it's an all-stock deal. And essentially, the stock's down 31%. And that's a function of just making an... Oh, sorry, I'm looking at last week's. Am I looking at last week's? Yeah, that happened. That happened last week. I apologize, everybody. For everybody that I just said this was what happened this week, this is what happened last week. And I left this open because I wanted to show everybody. That's when this happened with Core Scientific. There was a gigantic adjustment in that week. So, you know, that was an outlier. Let me go back to this week. So, take two. Okay. This is what this week looked like. And we got to change... Got to change a couple colors here. Okay, so you can see Bitcoin was down 1% on the week. How'd the Bitcoin miners do? Well, three of them underperformed. HUT was down 1%, Bitfarms was down 3%, Hive was down 3%. That's actually a pretty reasonable outcome for a week where Bitcoin was down 1%. That's almost what you would expect. But here's what you wouldn't expect. RIOT was up 12%. IREN was up 11%. CIFR up 8%. Core Scientific up 7%. TeraWolf up 5%, right? Almost all the Bitcoin miners were green, up a lot. And that goes, so I'm going to go from this week to this month. We're now more than halfway through July. And you've got a situation where other than Core Scientific, and again, that's an anomaly because that is based on a buyout. There's still some arbitrage going on trying to figure out exactly what that buyout's going to mean. But there was an adjustment downward as there was a huge run up right prior to that based on the rumors. So this was a buy the rumor, sell the news scenario. Other than that, every single Bitcoin miner is in the green in the month of July, and every single Bitcoin miner is outperforming Bitcoin. Most of them are doubling or tripling what Bitcoin did this month. And that's after this month, June, where Bitcoin was up 3%, and you had things doing anyway. I mean, this is 20x what Bitcoin did. So is this. This practically is, right? Bitcoin's up 3%, CIFR's up 53%. This was June. So when you if you look at June and July put together, we are in the middle of a gigantic run on the Bitcoin mining companies. And I don't think we're done because we're looking at a lot of these companies that they're just breaking out of or bumping into some lines of resistance, and they're nowhere near where they were, you know, a year ago. So they still haven't even hit their local highs. I think they'll hit their local highs and then make a run at their all-time highs. No, I'm not saying every single one of these is getting to their all-time high, but I think that most of that run is still ahead. And these are the first 2 months where we've had signs of life. Because if we look at now we'll go to year to date. If you look at the year to date, IREN is up 83%. So they are the big winner this year so far. Year's only a little more than half over, so we'll see what happens. CleanSpark 39%, CIFR 37%, Riot 36%, Bitcoin's up 26%, and then we have Marathon up 16 and HUT up 6. I'm going to go back in time, what is now, as George pointed out, a little over 3 months ago. And remember this chart. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Bitcoin miners in the green, some of them up as much as 83%. If I go back to April 4th, so again, a little more than 3 months ago, this is what that same chart looked like. The best Bitcoin miner was down 21%. Now the best Bitcoin miner's up 83%. And then there was a jump from there. All the rest of the Bitcoin, other than CleanSpark, every Bitcoin miner was down 30% or more. Most of them, the vast majority, were down 40% or more. We had Hive down 51, TeraWolf down 54, CIFR down 55, and BitDR down 63%. As of April 4th, and really April 8th was the day we called the bottom, this year was looking like it was going to be a nightmare. But I will tell you, on this channel, we said on the public stream and the private stream, this is the bottom. I think most, if not all of these companies will be green this year. Well, we're only 3 months later, and already most of them are green. So I feel like the second half of this year, we're going to get what we've been waiting for, when it's already starting to happen. So this, we've gone from here in approximately 3 months to here. This chart looks good. There's still some opportunities. BitDR's down 37% this year. Now, it's worth noting, in December of 2024, BitDR was up 50% in a month where every single Bitcoin miner got destroyed. So it was like 75 or 80% ahead of the next closest Bitcoin miner. I don't know what that anomaly was, but it's been correcting itself so far for the first 6.5 months of this year. But I do think that has a lot of opportunity. You know, you got to make up your own mind. Are companies like, you've got companies like Hive and Bitfarms that are trading for less than their book value. Their market cap is less than their book value. You don't find too many of those companies in the stock market, especially not companies that have been, these are revenue generating companies. These are growth companies. Now, we remain in a risk off environment, mainly because the Fed is very stubborn and our central bank is acting differently than every single rest of all the other central banks in the world. What are you thinking, George?
No, that statement you just said is working against us.
Well, I mean, listen, if you're the American consumer, you got to feel like the Fed's working against you. Keeping interest rates dramatically higher than they are around the rest of the world. And to put it in perspective, the central bank in the EU is at 2.5%. The United States is at 4.5%. That's almost double. The central bank of Japan's at 0.5%. I think the Swiss central bank's at 0%. So, right, while we won't lower rates, I've got charts I can show you. But it makes no sense. The Federal Reserve left interest rates at 0%, while the CPI over the course of 12 months ran from 5%, which was already too high and already double what it is today, from 5% to 9%. And then it's got off of 0% interest. Now, our interest rate, our inflation is half that, and we're at 4.5% interest. There's no line of reasoning. If there is one, I beg somebody to outline it in the chat. There is no line of reasoning for those two things to live in the same universe. They are the exact opposite. So one, we were literally in hyperinflation. We were having Fed meetings where they were saying we're in hyperinflation, but don't worry because it's transitory. That was the magic word. For some reason, the word transitory meant that nothing mattered and we could leave interest rates at zero. Now we're 2 full years into inflation being between 2.5% and 3.5%, which means we've gotten inflation under the 50-year average, and yet we leave rates at historic high levels. I don't get it.
I'm sneaking out. I'll be right back, though, because I'm going to jump in the car. Bye.
All right, you got it, George. Jeff, thanks for the super chat. Jeff said, gold as a target is cute. The target is the bond market, $100 trillion. For the crypto universe, it's one step at a time, but I will say this, that brings me, thank you, Jeff. That brings me to an article I want to go to because we did have a significant thing just happen. Take me a second to find it. Here we go. Crypto market crosses $4 trillion after XRP and ETH rally. And by the way, Bitcoin rally as well. So in the last cycle, in the last halving cycle, we got over $3 trillion. We got well over $3 trillion, but we never got to $4 trillion. This is brand new, uncharted territory. The crypto market is now, and it's slipped a little bit under it depending on how you measure it. It's at about 3.9. But this is the first time, this week is the first time in the history of the world the crypto market has crossed the $4 trillion mark. And that is a step on the way. And I do think that targets like gold's 22 trillion and the bond market's 100 trillion, those aren't 1-year targets. Those aren't 5-year targets. But I do think we'll live, maybe we won't, or we'll be old, but our kids are going to live in that kind of world, in my opinion. And I will tell you, the last 24 months have been staggering to me because a lot of the things that everybody predicted would happen, typically things take a lot longer to happen than you hope, than you want. And some things that they say are going to happen actually never happen. But we've experienced the opposite with cryptocurrency. The adoption over the last 1.5 to 2 years has been at warp speed. The news comes at us faster than I can even talk about it. So, to be at $4 trillion market cap for the crypto universe. And remember, Bitcoin's still very near. Bitcoin dominance, even after this run, is still pretty close to all-time highs. So for those of you who think you missed alt season, I would just submit to you, there's a lot of room left on that Bitcoin dominance chart to go down. And that's usually as the Bitcoin dominance is going down at the end of a bull market, it's not because Bitcoin's going down. Bitcoin's still going up. It's just the altcoins move so fast that they gain in market cap faster. So it's good news, potentially all the way around. Yes, if you're not in at all, you've probably missed phase 1 of alt season, but to me, that's still in early days.
All right.
Old Jock is saying, Tom, maybe chart miners from Bitcoin low in November of 2022. So that is the chart that I showed. Let me go back to that, Old Jock, and let me go back to that chart. All right. So this is from lows from the current cycle, which was, as Old Jock is pointing out, November of 2022. We had a double bottom in November and December of 2022. Since then, I won't belabor this. We did look at this, but since then, if you dollar cost averaged into IREN, IREN's up 1,659%. That's a 16 or 17x. CIFR's up 1,568%. TeraWulf's up 859%. Cleanspark's up 634%. By the way, if you just sat there and held Bitcoin and didn't bother with any of these derivatives, Bitcoin's up 660%. 660% in 2.5 years. I mean, this is spectacular performance. So the people who were predicting, wow, there's going to be no bull market this time, we're up 660% off the bottom. And there's reason to believe we could go a lot higher than this. So there's a couple underperformers, right? Several of them are not doing as well as Bitcoin. So to me, any Bitcoin miner that's not beating Bitcoin, you could kind of say is underperforming because you're taking a bigger risk with the miner than you are with the underlying asset because it's a derivative. So you should be getting a bigger reward during success season. So I will say these companies have work left to do. These companies have done their work. And these at the bottom, you know, you either believe one of two things. Bitfarms and Hive are trading for less than their book value. So you either believe these companies are going to fail or that they are way underpriced. And I just want to show you something that Hive has put out, because Hive's up 64% from its lows at the bottom of the crypto winter versus Bitcoin, which has done 10 times better than that. So is Hive a bad company? Well, I'll let you decide. Let me find their...
Tom, I hate Hive so much, I bought a big position in them.
You did. Welcome back,
And
George.
It went way down too, even after, you know what I mean? So it's finally in the green, but it hurt. It was like, oh my goodness. But nothing changed. No fundamental thing changed, so I stayed in it.
The only thing that's changing is they're getting better and better and better. Hive's future hash rate growth. So they are at 11 exahash right now. And by the way, subsequent to making, this is from their most recent investor presentation. Last week, they put out a notice letting us know they're now at 12 exahash. And they're showing they're going to be at 25 exahash by November of 2025. So if I go back in time and look, I think they came into this year at 6 exahash. So they're looking to come into the year at 6 exahash, go out of the year at 25 exahash, and this stock's performing by far the worst out of all the Bitcoin mining stocks, and it's not even close. So to me, is there opportunity there for a stock that's underperformed its peers at this level? The stock has underperformed. Has the company underperformed? I think this company's poised to do good things. I don't think they're the best Bitcoin mining company, right? That's not what we're talking about. We can debate who's the best Bitcoin mining company. As you're investing, you're trying to look at, you know, where's my best investment? You know, what has the most potential for growth? And a lot of times the answer to that is also going to carry a lot of risk with it. So you need to know your risk tolerance, and you need to be able to make those kind of risk reward decisions for yourself that you can live with, because sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. That's just life. Jeff, thank you. Jeff said, just like fiat, the first 100K is the hardest. 100K to $1 million is the easiest. Well, I hope you're right, Jeff. Were we talking about this on? Who was I talking about this with? Arnold Schwarzenegger famously said, the first $1 million is by far the hardest to make. He said, so you should start with the second $1 million. Which obviously, of course, you can't start with. That was a joke.
I wonder where it gets difficult. Like, at what percent? You know what I mean? Looking at investing in money, and you know, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not saying nothing, guys.
Listen,
I mean, four nickels, 20 nickels.
There's people turning a little money into a lot of money out there.
Look at it this way. No matter how much money you made this month, this week, a day, multiply it times probably 10 or 100 or actually 10,000, and that's what these freaking hedge funds guys are doing.
Right. There's individuals clearing 7 or 8 figures every day of the year. There's 20 hedge fund managers typically, and this is not true every year, but 15 to 20 hedge fund managers that make over $1 billion, not for their clients, personally, for themselves. Right? We don't know their names or their faces because they live a quiet life behind a desk, but you know what else they get? $1 billion a year. So it can be done. And that's just their share of what they made their customers.
Right. So can you imagine how much they made the customers if they made $1 billion? I mean, I would think they had to make, what do you think, 30, 40 billion?
Oh, it's astronomical. While the retail investor panics and sells low, and I'm not criticizing, it's almost impossible to endure these peaks and valleys. Things seem so bad on April 8th. The word everywhere was essentially all hope was lost. And that turned out to be the biggest buying opportunity, probably tied for the biggest buying opportunity of a lifetime. Tied with that thing that happened back in 2020 that you're not allowed to talk about.
AIDS?
That was a lot longer ago than that. Chris is saying CleanSpark growing to 60 exahash and dumping, LOL. So those are the times you got to ask yourself, is there a buying opportunity going on right now in CleanSpark? CleanSpark does stand out. They are the only one on this list that is 100% a pure play Bitcoin mining company. They do nothing else. They allocate 0 megawatts of their resources to anything other than mining Bitcoin. They also hodl Bitcoin. They have over 12,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So we know the financial statements for the period ended June 30th are going to be out of this world. We know that for CleanSpark. We know that for IREN that held almost 20,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. We know that for Marathon that held almost 50,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Marathon could make $1 billion this quarter. They're only a $7 billion company. They're going to make $1 billion this quarter.
And think about it. How many companies? Are you talking about last quarter too, didn't they?
The quarter before was the 2 quarters ago was phenomenal. The quarter before was okay. This quarter is going to be ballistic.
Are you talking about the one coming out
yes,
in a couple days?
The 3 months ended June 30th.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, because
crazy. I think that's gonna Marathon's gonna. I think it's gonna skyrocket. At least me and my shares hope it does.
How can you look at a company and say its market value is $7 billion, but they made $1 billion this quarter, not this year, this quarter? So,
and you can look even Tesla. What's Tesla?
Right. If these companies get no credit, and they go through cycles. We went through a crypto winter. They had to limp their way through to the other side, and I understand that. But what have they all done? Some of these companies, for instance, IREN, from the crypto winter until now, they've 50x'd their exahash. They're 50 times bigger of a company. So you go, oh, but the reward got cut in half. Well, they're 50 times bigger. Right? CleanSpark's 10 times bigger than they were. These are massive improvements. And by the way, at the same time, dramatically improving the efficiency of the machines so their fleets are more efficient, which helps keep that cost down. There's a lot of these companies. IREN tells us on a monthly basis, they're paying like $26,000 a coin. So we don't have to guess, and we don't have to listen to the rumors that, well, really the all-in cost is, you know, $150,000 and everybody's losing money. They pay $26,000 a coin. And we're at Bitcoin $120,000 plus or minus. We were just at 123,000. So they mined over 600 Bitcoin last month. They made 90 grand on every single one of them. So IREN, which does not HODL, is also going to have the best financial statements they've ever had in the history of their company, and it won't be close.
600 times basically 100,000. That's 60 million.
Right. That's in one quarter. So that's what I'm saying. These companies are, there's now, and what you hope is that while the pendulum swang one way in the crypto winter, which was to ridiculous lows, and I'll point out that every Bitcoin miner at that time, we were following 19 publicly traded Bitcoin miners. The best performing Bitcoin miner was down 91% from its peak in November of 2021. The worst performing was down 99%, and there was more than one of them that were down 99%. So yes, that crypto winter was brutal, but you can see the comeback that they've made since then. So if you took profits at the top, if you dollar cost averaged in along the way, there's been buying opportunities. I mean, people are sick of hearing this is a buying opportunity, but the reality is it's a buying opportunity, right? If you go to this chart, if you go back to Marathon, I mean, if you look at, well, I'll shrink it here so you can see, right? I'm looking at this point. This is where they were in November of 2024, right? Where was Bitcoin in November of 2024? That's December. That's late November. Bitcoin was at about 100. Early November, mid-November, Bitcoin was at around 93. And coming into November, Bitcoin was at around 70,000. So, dollar cost average the month in November and versus this month. Right? Bitcoin's significantly higher. These companies are significantly bigger, and they're not. Marathon's at 57 exahash, and they just announced that they're going to get to 75 exahash by the end of the year. So when you go back to the Marathon chart, and I'm not saying buy Marathon, there's like I said, all of these Bitcoin miners have a slightly different business model. So there's a lot to choose from on what you like and you don't like. But not only is, in the last just over 3 months, this company's up 100%. That's a double. But they have to go up another 56% just to get back to where they were in November of 2024. And really, they were, in my opinion, priced low at that time. This is February of 2024. Marathon, so at that, let's go back to February. So Marathon was at $34 a share. And in February, right, you got to almost like adjust your screen. In February, we ran up from 40,000 to 50,000 to 48,000. So that's where Bitcoin was at 40 to 48,000 when Marathon was at, let's go back and get the exact number. When Marathon was at $34. So why is it unreasonable to think that they won't get back to at least $34? By the way, that's not even half their all-time high. Their all-time high is in the 80s from the peak of the last bull market. So I don't know. Are they going to get back to 30? Are they going to get back to 34? Are they going to get back to 40, 60, 80, 100? You know, only the future is going to tell us what the answer to that is, but you can see where there's room left. There's a lot of room left to the upside if Bitcoin keeps doing its thing and if these companies keep performing, right? Because Marathon, by the way, Marathon.
I think, Tom, but with Tom, with Marathon, though, I just think I don't think Bitcoin needs to keep, as long as it stays where it's at, I think Marathon should be sitting pretty.
Right. If nothing else, they have $6 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And they're a $7 billion company. So
that's like a no-brainer to me.
So they're valuing Marathon at nothing.
And at some point in time, I gotta think that's going to change, Tom.
It's a waiting game, and we have been waiting, and we have been waiting. Now, the last 2 months, we've been getting paid off. Marathon's doubled. Riot's more than doubled. IREN's up 250%. So, you know, we're in the middle of a little bit of a run here. Cleanspark up 95%. CIFR. Look at CIFR. Up 238%. Even Bitfarms, which everybody seems to almost universally despise. Bitfarms, I don't even have to go all the way back to April 8th. They retested this 1 month ago. So in the last 1 month, they're up almost 50%. And that is while, let me show you this. That is while Riot just put this out a couple of days ago. They now own 9.85% of Bitfarms. And to put that in perspective, okay, so this 13D was filed. This is Riot's ownership in Bitfarms, right? They just filed this. They now own 54.7 million shares. Well, their original filing, their 144 they filed, they owned 91 million shares of Bitfarms. And basically, they filed a form that said they intend to sell it all. Well, they've sold over 35 million shares of Bitcoin. And instead of that putting sell pressure on Bitcoin or Bitfarms and Bitfarms collapsing, Bitfarms is up 50% while these guys have been dumping it hand over fist. So my biggest worry was, man, that's a lot of sell pressure. Well, the volume is way up on Bitfarms and the stock is way up while Riot continues to dump their position. So where I was once deeply concerned that this could have a massive short-term beatdown, and I didn't think it would affect the long term, but in the short term, you know, it was stacking up. There were days where there was only $5 or $6 million of volume traded for Bitfarms. So, you know, if you're a company that owns 90 million shares and you intend to get rid of all of them, how do you do that when there's only trading 5 or 6 million a day? Well, that has corrected. In the middle, there was a day that they traded over 50 million shares. I don't even know what they traded today. We'll go look. But it's been much more around their 17 or 18 million a day. Today, 23 million shares. Okay, so that's a day where Riot can get rid of a couple million shares, right? There's room to do that in 23 million shares. So I now am no longer worried about the Riot's already under 10%. They've already sold 35 million shares. And, I think they'll sell the rest. I don't think this stock is going to get destroyed like I feared. I held on to this. I was on the brink of trading it, but I didn't. So I've caught the 50% run up on this. Now, I caught a run down a lot.
Settled? Is that lawsuit settled with their previous CEO?
I don't know if the one with their previous CEO is settled. There's several lawsuits out there. A lot of the Bitcoin mining companies have class action lawsuits against them. And by the way, a lot of publicly traded companies. I don't know if I can say the majority, but it is extremely common. But the one with their former CEO, I don't know if that's resolved. And that was for what, like $24 million?
Yeah.
So, and it was just a part of the bad look. Bitfarms had 4 or 5 things in a row happen that were just not good. They were not a good look. They did not advance the company. In fact, they were taking steps backward. I think they've steadied the ship, but I don't feel the same way about this company as I did a year ago. Right? When I bought this stock, they were talking about getting to 20 exahash by the end of last year, 30 exahash by the end of 2025. That plan's out the window. They got to their 20 and they've said they will go no further. They're now going to be the rest of what they do, high performance computing and AI. And listen, I wish them the best of success with that. There may be lots of good things ahead, but I think, like we talked about at the very top of this show, I think there's a bubble happening in AI. And so I'm a little bit concerned about the companies that have moved to pure play high performance computing. Now, this is not an example. Go ahead, George.
It's going to be interesting, though. Did you hear about did you get a girlfriend?
You broke up on that one. Can you say it again?
Hear about that?
You broke.
Did you get the girlfriend experience on X?
What?
Oh, the girlfriend experience on X.
I don't.
The girlfriend experience?
I don't know what that means. X can be your girlfriend?
Oh, you haven't heard about it? Yeah. Grok, they've made a thing where you can have like interactions with a AI that's a girl. Well, it's an AI. It's not really anything, but they call it the girlfriend experience. I don't know what it means. I haven't looked at it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I implore you, do something else with your time. That's not that. Whatever that is. That's, oh boy. And Larry's saying there are millions to be invested that are still on the sidelines. And you're right, Larry, except it's trillions. There's trillions of dollars on the sideline. Just Berkshire Hathaway alone has they're the 6th or 7th or 8th biggest publicly traded company. They have over $400 billion on the sidelines sitting in cash and treasuries. So that's almost half their market cap is sitting on the sidelines. So there's a lot of money not yet invested in the market. And this is another way Jerome Powell, if you live here in America, is hurting your money. Because for as long as interest rates stay this high, you're going to have a risk-off environment. If you can get 4.5% parking your money in cash, you have very little incentive to go out and try and take high risk-on type things. Even in that environment, you've got these what was perceived as high-risk assets like Bitcoin thriving, outperforming every segment of the market, and it's not close. So wait till we get risk on, because the interest rates, all I can tell you is this. I don't know the future, but interest rates are about to drop, and not by a little bit. That is my feeling.
Oh, yeah. What, did you hear about the criminal referral? of Powell?
No, I did not.
There was a criminal referral. So they budgeted. Now think about this. This is a building. They budgeted I think it started off at $1 billion, and then they went up to build the Federal Reserve System building, and then they went up to $2 billion.
Oh yeah, like $2.5 billion.
Yeah, 2.5 billion. Yep.
Yeah,
isn't that insane?
To remodel.
To remodel.
That's not where it's not a good look. While people are struggling, paycheck to paycheck.
It's like in California where there's a 30 I think they said it was going to be the high speed rail was going to be $33 billion, and now they're saying it's going to be 180 total $billion. Just missed it by that much, guys.
And Old Jock's pointing out Mara's hodl is 86% of their market cap, which means they're effectively saying that they're valuing that company at nothing. I mean, this was a $7 or $8 billion market cap company in the last bull market 4 years ago, and they had just a tiny fraction of the number of Bitcoin they have right now. So it was trading at many multiples the value of its Bitcoin. Right, it had way less Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was worth half what it's worth right now. So this is out of balance. We're so far away from the valuations we were in the last bull market. And the number one reason for that is the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates high, and it's pushed the entire marketplace into a risk-off environment, which is why you will see the Russell 2000 has dramatically underperformed the S&P 500, which is the broadest measure of the market. Although, as we discussed, that's getting skewed because there's now 10 companies that I think make up 40% of the market cap of the S&P 500. And it's even worse than that in the NASDAQ because there's only 100 companies. So the NASDAQ is the best performer, and the Russell is by far the worst performer. Why is that? Because risk on, the tech stocks are running like crazy. We're building these mega $3 trillion, $4 trillion companies. There's trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines. There's trillions of dollars. There's 6 or 7 trillion sitting in money markets. Why? Because they're getting 4.5% or 5%. So of course they're sitting there. That money, and not every dollar of that is going to move into Bitcoin, but you don't need that to happen. You just need a shift. The flip has not been, unlike every other bull market we've ever had with Bitcoin. All the rest of the bull markets were supported in a quantitative easing phase by the Fed. In other words, very low interest rates, mostly at zero for almost every single other halving. The interest rate has been at zero. In addition to that, the Fed's been printing money. So here we sit. Bitcoin is doing this without any of that. Wait till that happens. That is why I believe we are going to have a longer cycle.
Do you think it's going to be longer for the altcoins too, Tom?
I think it's deferred for the altcoins. I think it could be longer. The altcoins are definitely a scarier universe, but I will say there's 5 or 6 altcoins that are starting to establish their own credibility, not just I'm an altcoin, everything's 10xing or 100xing. There's some real use cases out there with some of these coins. So those coins I think are more, they're not necessarily Bitcoin, but they have stronger long-term hold lines of reasoning behind them. I want to get to just a couple of articles because this one speaks straightly to it. And this just came out yesterday. Bitcoin's 4-year cycles may be over as the asset matures. This from a K33 analyst. So I've been saying this for a year and a half. And the standard issue response, which is actually valid until proven otherwise, is, You know, basically what I'm saying is this time is different, and that's what everybody says about everything every time it happens, and they're almost always wrong. So I understand the skepticism, but I think this time is different. And I think the Bitcoin's 4-year cycle is over, and this article talks about macroeconomic forces matter more now for Bitcoin than the quadrennial mining rewarding halving. Bitcoin's traditional 4-year price cycle may no longer apply as the asset's perceived role evolves. The impact of mining rewards halving is diminishing while other macroeconomic forces matter more, with widening institutional access and growing sovereign interest. Bitcoin is becoming, quote, a reactionary store of value amid global tensions and inflationary pressures. A reactionary store of value. This has been the argument from Bitcoin maximalists since the beginning. This was a store of value. This was a hedge against inflation. This is digital gold, only it's better than digital gold because they just keep finding more gold with every year that passes by. But there's 21 million Bitcoin. That's it. Zero inflation. There will be no more. They're not going to find any more Bitcoin.
I don't know. You could go get a dump in the UK.
Well, yeah, somewhere allegedly in a dump yard, there's $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin reached new all-time highs in the year after the quadrennial mining reward halving, 2012, 2016, and 2020. The previous 2 bull runs peaked roughly 1,060 days after the previous cycle bottom. If that pattern held, a peak could occur as soon as mid-October. So if this one's like the last ones, we're headed towards mid-October for that blow-off top, and that's the end of it. But this person is arguing, as I am, I don't think what comes after that is some crypto winter. And that doesn't mean we're not going to get pullbacks. Bitcoin's legendary for its 20% pullback or a 30% pullback. In the middle of the last bull market, from March to November, from 64,000 to 69,000, we had a 55% pullback. So the volatility is real, although I think you're seeing that volatility go down substantially. And it's because there's so many new players. The demand every day, the demand is bigger than it was the day before. The impact of the halving is materially smaller today than in the past. Now, with regulated institutional access widening and interest from sovereign entities growing, the macroeconomic forces may matter more that favor a detachment from past cycle patterns. So this is my whole argument, and we'll see if it's right or wrong. We believe Bitcoin has moved from a speculative, reflexive asset to a more established reactionary store of value in the world with tenser global trade and enhanced inflationary pressures.
Whoa. Did you read that article about the oil for Russia?
No.
And how they got away from the sanctions because of BTC?
No, I did not.
Oh, that was a great article. It's like they're going to have to figure out another way on sanctions because they were still able to sell crypto their oil
through.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's already happening. Here's another article from 2 days ago. Crypto is going mainstream and, quote, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. This from Bitwise. Regulatory clarity would allow major financial institutions to fully build into crypto. The passage of crypto legislation in the U.S. will result in digital assets going mainstream, Bitwise says. The asset manager said regulatory clarity would allow major financial institutions to fully build in crypto. This is what we've been talking about. The U.S. is on the verge of passing landmark crypto legislation, and if it succeeds, and the first one is passed, it is signed, it's done, the Genius Act is law, The impact could be profound, not only by unlocking growth, but by significantly reducing risk, asset manager Bitwise said. The growth story is straightforward. Regulatory clarity would empower major financial institutions such as JP Morgan, BNY, Bank of New York Mellon, NASDAQ to fully build in crypto. So this is what we were talking about. This is opening the doors to everybody. And, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And I believe, unlike in the previous cycles, if you guys remember November of 2021, probably many of you were there for that. We were there. We were streaming. And, we were the Bitcoin enthusiasts and the crypto enthusiasts. And we weren't alone, but none of the mainstream had taken to that. We were all the fringe ding-dongs that were playing with fire and, this stuff's not real. It has no value. It's all going to zero. 2 years after that, the head of JP Morgan said Bitcoin's no different than the pet rock. And ultimately he said, don't ask me about Bitcoin. I'm never talking about it again. That's Jamie Dimon. And now JP Morgan has opened a separate division, JP Morgan Digital. So how far have things come? The genie, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. We're past that. And none of that was here in the last bull market.
Wow, traffic's unbelievable in Atlanta.
Will Bitcoin overtake gold in market cap in the next 5 years? 64% of you think yes, Bitcoin will overtake gold. And to put it in perspective, you're talking about Bitcoin at a little over $1 million a Bitcoin. That's what it's got to do to get there. So is Bitcoin going to get to $1 million in 5 years? I think there's a really good chance of that happening. So I don't think that's out of the realm. I think there's a really good chance of that happening.
And Marathon will still have an at the market.
That's right, exactly.
Oh God.
We'll end that poll. We didn't nearly get to everything that I hope to get to. Maybe we can get to some of it on the members only live stream or some of it next Friday. I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Special thanks to all the members, of course, and all the subscribers. George, thank you very much for your time.
Fun, guys. Thanks, everybody, for the super chats. They're great.
Everybody have a fantastic weekend. And for the members, we will see you Tuesday after the market closes.